As a delegate, you've been on the inside for a long time. As a member of the RNC, you kind of know how these things work. So what are you seeing in this cycle?
Well, Donald Trump, as you know, has been the front runner since August, since the Cleveland first debate. And ever since that time, there's been attempts from all sides to take Donald Trump out of the mix, and it hasn't been very successful. The more they attack him, the stronger he gets, and he's resonating with America and the voters.
RNC Chairman Reince Priebus was out over the weekend, and he was making comments that make it sound like he's thinking that a contested convention is more likely. You think that's the case?
That could very well be the case going into the national convention. I can see that happening.
Where no one makes it to the 1237 that is required in terms of the delegate count?
Exactly. That's just realistic.
We had another delegate who joined us last week. His name's Curly Hoagland, and he's also a member of the RNC Rules Committee. His point was that the party is the one that chooses the candidates, not necessarily the primary votes, the way they go down, and that these are the rules. It's very clear that if it goes to a contested election, it could walk out, and anyone could be the actual candidate who is nominated by the party, not necessarily the front runner or even the second place. What do you think of that?
Well, at the end of the day, you know, people are under the misconception that it's the results of the caucus and the results of the primary that determines who becomes the nominee. In actuality, it's the delegates at the national convention that are supposed to pick the nominee. They're not always able to because of rules changes and manipulations that occur at the national convention. But that is the job of what it is to be a delegate to go to the national convention. It's to hash out the differences, have several votes, as we probably will be having in this national convention, and to select the nominee.
Diana, do you have any friends that are delegates for somebody else? Do you ever talk about what's going to happen at the convention? I know that Trump supporters maybe talk amongst themselves, but do you have any friends that are delegates for somebody else?
Yeah, I have friends who are, you know, Cruz supporters.
Mm-hmm.
And,
so what do you guys talk about right now when you're thinking about the contested convention? I mean,
well, there's going to have to be, you know, justification for getting delegates together to support the candidate that they feel is going to be doing the best job in representing the American people and getting this this country back on track going forward.
Do you feel like if Donald Trump walks out, if he has the most votes, maybe not 1237, but if he has the most votes from delegates walking in, and he walks out without the nomination, do you think it will have been stolen from him?
Well, you know, there's all sorts of things that can occur going into this national convention. Just as in the 2012 convention, everybody saw the manipulation of the rules, and microphones were cut off from the delegates down on the floor, and delegates weren't able to be seated because they said that paperwork wasn't filed on time, so the credentialing committee was, you know, doing some things that weren't necessarily on the up and up, and so a lot of delegates were eliminated, and at that time it was solely for keeping Ron Paul off of the ballot. Going into this convention, they're going to try to do a lot of manipulation to try to keep Trump from becoming the nominee. There's no doubt about that. It's out in the open. A lot of political operatives in the Republican Party are trying to take Trump out at all costs. So that is what we have to watch out for, and we have to make sure that the rules and the seating of the delegates is done in a proper manner.